afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Learning Kitchen Live. My name is Beth, and I'm one of the dietitians here at Community Servings. And today we are going to be talking about the Mighty Spud. So potatoes are probably one of the easiest and most versatile foods to cook. And I think they get a bad rap a little bit, probably because carbs get a bad rap, but I wanted to talk about some of the amazing health benefits nutritionally about potatoes and just talk about how versatile they are in terms of cooking. So before class, I roasted up some nice little oven fries here, and I'll talk about those. But I want to talk about the recipe that I'm going to make with you today, which is a sweet potato hash. And what's so great about this is that I start with a base, and you could do a sweet potato or a regular potato, whatever you like. You chop it up, you throw it in a pan, and then you can add whatever you like. So all kinds of veggies, whatever protein you like. You could just keep it straight veggies and put some fried eggs on top, but it's a great way to use up extra vegetables in your house and make a quick, easy, hearty breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So we are going to get that going, and while I do it, I'm going to talk about some of the great health benefits of potatoes. So I'm going to just get this. You want to get a pretty big skillet. You might not have one as big as this at home, but the biggest one you have, because the issue here is that we want to get some good browning, and if I overcrowd my pan, I'm going to get steaming, which I don't want. So I'm going to get that going. Oops, wrong burner. Still haven't figured out which burner is which in here. So we want to get that hot, and I'm going to come over here to my ingredients. So what I have is 2 small, or just you could use 1 big sweet potato, and you can start with it raw, but what I actually did was stick it in the microwave for about 3 minutes just to kind of get the cooking process going, and that way your dish will go really quickly. So you just jab a fork into a couple sides of the potato, stick it in the microwave for about 3 minutes, and let it just start to cook, and then chop it up. So that's what I've done. And then to that, we're going to be adding some Brussels sprouts, some onions, some peppers, just a little bit of seasoning, and then what I have here is some chicken breakfast sausage. So you could use veggie sausage, you could use real sausage, whatever you like. But this is going to be sort of a breakfast style hash. So I'm going to get a little bit of oil going in my pan. And you just want to make sure you coat the whole bottom of it, because we want our potatoes to get nice and crispy and brown, because that's what's going to make this so delicious. So give that another sec. So what's so great about potatoes? I mean, everyone probably eats potatoes. Well, one of the greatest things about potatoes is how many vitamins and minerals are in them. So 1 medium-sized potato has about 1/3 of the vitamin C that you would need for the whole day, but it also has about 1/3 of the potassium that you would need for a whole day. And what's so great about potassium is that it's great for people who have high blood pressure, because it offsets the amount of sodium that we eat in your diet. So they're kind of opposite sides of a puzzle, and so the more sodium you eat, the more risk you have for high blood pressure, but potassium can kind of offset that. So 1 potato has about 1/3 of the potassium that you need in a day. Potatoes also are really high in folate, which is another really important vitamin or mineral for making DNA and for preventing birth defects if you're of childbearing age. And then, of course, potatoes are super high in fiber, especially if we leave the skin on, which I have here. So I think my pan is probably pretty hot. And so with sweet potatoes, we have 1 extra benefit. So if you notice that beautiful orange color, that orange color means that there's lots of beta carotene in there, which is really great for our eyes, because what happens is beta carotene forms vitamin A in our bodies, and 1 sweet potato has more than 100% of the vitamin A that you need in a day. So you can see that potatoes, despite their bad rap at being high carb, have a ton of nutrition. So certainly someone who is being careful about their blood sugar and how many carbohydrates they eat would want to be careful about portion size for potatoes, but people with diabetes or who are trying to watch their blood sugar do not need to avoid potatoes at all costs, because the fiber in them and all the other vitamins and minerals are good for them. So they want to at least consider adding some potatoes to their diet just in a moderate portion. All right, so these are going to get nice and brown, and my heat is a little high. Turn it down. And this is going to go real quick. This might be our shortest episode ever. So to that, I'm going to add these are fully cooked chicken sausages. So I'm just going to take the whole package, and I'm just going to run my knife through them. You can use raw sausage. If you did this with raw sausage, you would want to cook it first, pull it out, and then do the rest of the recipe and then add it back in. So I'm just going to chop these guys up. And because these have so much flavor, I don't need a lot of other seasoning in the recipe. So, if you were doing this with like ground turkey or something that was maybe less seasoned, you might want to add some good spice to it. Of course, you can add spice to it anyway if that's what you like. So I made this last night as a side dish to test it out. And I didn't add the sausage, so I added a bunch of cumin and cayenne pepper and made it kind of spicy. Get that going in here. And you can see these are getting nice and brown. Alright. So, what else is great about potatoes? Well, one of the things that we're seeing in a lot of research right now is that potatoes are really good for our gut health, and that is for two reasons. One is, like I said before, they have a lot of fiber. So fiber is the part of a plant that you can't digest, and so what that does is it kind of pushes everything else through your digestive system. So it can help lower your cholesterol, it can help keep your blood sugar stable, but in addition, fiber is what feeds the good bacteria in our gut. So the fiber that we don't digest gets pushed on through, and then the good bacteria that are sitting in our colon get that as their food. And one of the things that we're seeing is that one of the types of starches that's in fiber is something called resistant starch, and we don't digest it very well, but our gut microbes love it. So what they do is they turn that into short-chain fatty acids, which are really helpful for keeping our healthy gut microbiome. Okay, so next I'm going to add a couple more ingredients, and we're actually going to be good to go to eat this. So I have some Brussels sprouts, about a half a pound of Brussels sprouts that I trimmed, and I'll show you quickly how to do that. You just want to cut the little tiny bottom off so you don't eat that little dirty part. And then you just cut it in half and then quarters. And you might lose some of the leaves as you're chopping, and that's fine because those will just be nice, good, crispy bits. Or as we call them in my house, the Brussels sprout chips. So we're going to knock those in. And also I have a red onion that I've chopped up. We'll add that in as well. That one has a little bit. And so we're just going to get this going. We want to see if we can get some Brussels sprouts to get some action in the bottom of the pan, because those are really good when they get nice and browned as well. And so once we're at this point, we're kind of only about 5 minutes away from eating. So you can see how this would make a really great, nutritious, and quick dinner, especially if you did your chopping in advance. So if you chopped your Brussels sprouts and your onions and your peppers all beforehand, or you can of course get them pre-chopped in the grocery store as well, this would come together like in less than 10 minutes. And you'd have a breakfast, a lunch, or even a really nice dinner. I'm going to let that sit for a sec. Alright, so I'm going to let those Brussels sprouts get a little good browning action on the bottom of my pan as much as I possibly can. And we want to just get the potatoes cooking through. So the final thing I want to say about potatoes is that they're just super accessible and super versatile. So one of the things I did before class was I just sliced up a potato into little wedges, tossed it with salt and pepper and a little bit of olive oil, and just roasted it in a high pan, or a high oven for about 20 to 30 minutes. And you can see that, you know, they're certainly not McDonald's French fries, but they are a great substitute where I didn't add a lot of salt, I didn't add a lot of fat, but they would make a great side dish. And it came together in no time at all. But There's so many things you can do with potatoes. You can use them, you know, as fillers in all kinds of meat dishes. So say you wanted to make a meatloaf or something like that and you wanted to cut some of the meat, you can add some potatoes. They can be a topping. They make millions of side dishes. So they're super versatile, super inexpensive, and they last a pretty good amount of time in your cupboard too, so you can keep them on hand for whenever you need them. So that's my plug for potatoes. So those will get a little bit more time, and then we just have a couple more ingredients that we're going to add. And look at that beautiful color. And I'm going to add one more color. This is really going to be like a rainbow hash. I'm going to turn my heat up a tiny bit as well. Alright, so our last few ingredients are some red peppers, or you could use yellow or green, whatever you like, whatever you have. And this is just going to add some more brightness. And this dish is going to be crazy crammed with vitamin C, which is great for preventing any kind of disease because it's an antioxidant. But between the peppers, the potatoes, and the Brussels sprouts, we have probably a whole day's worth of vitamin C in this one dish. So depending on how you like your Brussels sprouts, some people like them to be a little softer and some people like them more on the crunchy side. So if you like them to be a little more steamed and soft, you might want to add like a tablespoon or two of water to this and cover it for a couple of minutes. But if you want to keep them nice and crispy, then don't cover it at all. You can see I'm getting some brown bits in the bottom of there, and that's okay. You know, you want to be careful not to burn the pan, but having some little brown bits on the bottom of there is fine. Okay, and then I just have some seasoning that I'm going to add. So we'll add some chopped garlic, and I always say this, but you want to make sure that garlic isn't going to burn, so that's why I'm adding it towards the end, so it will only cook for a few minutes. And then we're going to just add a couple pinches of salt, and this you can do to your own taste, and then a couple pinches of some black pepper as well. And like I mentioned before, you could add cumin or even some beans to it to kind of round it out as a full meal. Or some cayenne or hot sauce or whatever you like if you wanted to kind of spice it up. I've seen some recipes out there too that were more like a Mexican hash, but you can see I could use really anything that I had on hand in here. So mushrooms would be good. So if you were going to do it with an egg, you would just make like a little well in there and put a couple of eggs to cook them through. But I'm basically done here. And now I have a meal for about 4 to 6 people, or I have breakfast for myself every single day this week. So I hope that you learned something new about potatoes, and hope you'll try making this. And thanks for joining us today. This is Learning Kitchen Live. I am Beth, and have a great afternoon.